Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and another fun Baldurs Gate 3 discussion video. Josh challenged me this time to take all of the most powerful combat spells and rank them. So this is only the most impactful spells on a tier list, which was really hard to rank, let me tell you. To state the obvious again before we get started, this list is not including the many incredible out of combat stuff like Speak with the Animals or the Dead. Super strong stuff like that, but since it's not combat tied directly, we're not talking about those to keep this concise. And also, this is more general spells rather than, say, some class exclusives like the incredible Paladin Divine Smite. Just be aware of that too. With that said, we only have B as the lowest grade here, all the way up to S+, which I'll explain right now. These two, aka S+, is obviously Counterspell and Haste. If you have these available in the party in some form, if it's a choice, you run them. No questions asked, no discussion, they're literally the best spells in the game. Counterspell can stop an enemy spellcaster from doing something absolutely abysmal, and Haste provides such insane perks to DPS and general damage output. You just have to be aware of the lethargic effect when it ends, of course, but it's undeniably ridiculously good. Alright, so let's do things in a more interesting order at random, starting with, as we can see here, Darkness. Down in B. Why is darkness B? Well, because it can actually be a negative for your party. This creates that cloud of darkness that is incredible if you can see through it. You won't be affected by the blind. Enemies can't shoot into it. Enemies within are all disadvantaged if you've got your party set up for it. Because if you don't, some of your party members are now disadvantaged by the cloud and it can create problems. So it's a very good combat spell, but it requires almost like a unity for the party to be prepped for using darkness. Next we have Hero's Feast, which I have nicely in A. This provides so much, and the moment that you reach like the level 6 spell slots, you should be running this spell. Not necessarily in your own party, that'd be a waste of the 6 spell slot, but you probably got a druid sitting around in your camp that you're not using. If not, you could use a hireling to generate a chest of food, which is wonderful, but also the insane resistance that provides. Your party just can't be poisoned, diseased, or frightened, by the way, with wisdom saves with advantage and health increase. It's kinda ridiculous. This does so much, and as soon as you reach the point where you can have 6 level spell slots, you should be running it. Right, next we have Armor of Agthias, which I put into an A tier. Admittedly, you don't use this in every build, but the builds that you do use it in, it's pretty much S tier. You get temporary hit points, and you get reflect cold damage to any creature that's hitting you in melee. If you upcast this, you just get much more hit points, much more cold reflect, and it leads into one of the strongest builds in the game, the Arcane Ward Reflect build. If you can snag it, there's no reason not to have it on. Extra health, keeping you alive, and dealing a bit of extra damage. I really like it. Next we have Misty Step, which is obviously S tier. This just provides so much utility, putting yourself onto high ground, getting yourself out of sticky situations, even out of combat, just traversing the world. It's absolutely insane, and the fact that you can do it on a bonus action as well, meaning you can do your main turn and reposition with it. God, it's so good, and we probably all know that. Okay, next up we have Planar Ally, which is basically a ridiculously strong summon. You can even bring in a Deva or a Djinn, depending on what you need. The Deva's going to provide lots of radiant damage, the Djinn's got the poison effect, so if one of those is better than the other for the fight, you know, you can pick one or the other. It's just one of the strongest summons that are in the game, and it is a 6th level spell for a good reason. Next up we have Magic Missiles, which is in A tier. Previously it would have been an S tier, but after the nerf to the Spellmite gloves, it's not doing as much DPS as it was doing before. Having said that, it's still one of the strongest spells that you can do and do a build all around, and it's also fantastic for, say, interrupting concentration as a spell. It does work early game, it does work mid and late. It's not as busted as it used to be, but it's still obviously one of the best things. Okay, it looks like we've next got the Globe of Invulnerability. Basically, this can be absolutely clutch. There are certain fights, like a certain enemy in the Wormways, where they have a special move that's just going to destroy you, and this invulnerable orb can save you. Or you can position and really defend an area with it. There's so many cool tricks you can do with this one, but it can also backfire in that enemies can step into it and also become invulnerable. So where it's relevant, it's S tier. Where it's not, it can be awkward, and that's why I've got it in A tier. Alright, next we have Aid, which is just providing you with temporary hit points, and it's pretty much one of the optimal or best sources of it, and you can also get it pretty early. Temporary hit points are absolutely nuts, especially in the harder difficulties where you're preventing anyone from being one-shot because of that, and you can basically have it on the whole team with lots of temporary hit points whenever you need it. Also, you can do some cool tricks with, say, summons where you're controlling undead, healing them using Aid because normal healing doesn't work. Next up, we have Spirit Guardians, which I really like, and, you know, I've got to really give props to it in Act 2, where it absolutely carries. As a level 3 spell, you can get it relatively early and choose to deal either radiant damage or necrotic damage in a circle around you. What's really cool is it's very effective per turn. You have 10 turns of this aura and you don't have to directly attack anyone. You can just kind of walk around the fight, pressing the moving circle into targets, popping the damage, and moving to another target and doing the same. It allows for some ridiculous DPS per turn, especially with you not using an action on most of the turns it's available, so you can still do a normal attack. It is very, very good, especially where radiant and necrotic damage is potent. Next up we have Sanctuary, also A tier. Pick yourself or an ally and you make it so they're completely immune to being targeted. They still take damage from area spells admittedly, but that makes it really hard to target this person or knock them out the Sanctuary. It lasts an insane 10 turns and is a bonus action level 1 spell slot. It's so effective and efficient at protecting a particular party member after they've taken the turn or someone who's in, noticeable danger. Obviously they break the effect when they attack, so it's just a safety net that's very strong to have. Next we have Command, also in A tier. I absolutely love this. There are so many ways you can use Command to great benefit. Making someone grovel and go prone, giving you advantage on them, disarming a dangerous enemy, majorly reducing their damage, forcing the enemy to position for you for AoE. There's so many ways you can use this. And if you upcast it, you can hit multiple targets at once, and also spells of this nature would normally be concentration, Command just isn't. So it's incredibly effective and efficient at what it does. The control options you have might not be the best, but they're very effective for very little. Next up, we have the Glyph of Warding. We're just doing all 8 here, apparently. This creates this kind of big arcane glyph on the ground. If an enemy steps on it like a trap, the selected magical effect will then trigger, which means you get to choose what's going to happen. It allows for a variety of elemental attacks, whether it's fire, cold, lightning, acid, whatever. Whatever's relevant in that fight, say an enemy's weak to fire damage, well then you've got that available with this ward. Maybe acid's going to be better. Maybe lightning's going to be better. There's so much utility in this one ability. So a lot of people swear by this, and I do too. I think A tier is fair though. In S tier though, finally another different tier, is Great Water, because it's pretty hard to say, yeah, this thing creates double damage opportunities and CC in massive area if you want to upcast it. It kind of doubles the damage of some of the strongest builds in the game, and you don't even have to be running that build. It could be someone in your party that would benefit from that, and you're just placing the water even before the fight even happens, so it doesn't waste like a turn. Absolutely ridiculously effective ability, and one you can get very early as well. Next up we have Chain Lightning, which is also S tier. This is a level 6 spell, and it's S tier for the raw damage it provides. Hit an enemy with a lightning, deal massive damage to them, then 3 more bolts will leap from that target, electrifying 3 other enemies within the 18-meter radius. Imagine you've created water beforehand. Double the damage. So if you're running a high level sorcerer or wizard, this is just a spell you're going to take because the DPS potential is so high, especially if you're running a proper build for it. Okay, moving on. Next we have Polymorph, which I have down in B tier. Polymorph allows you to target a creature and turn it into a sheep for 5 turns. It does require concentration, but it allows you to take an enemy out of the fight. The negatives of this is it's a level 4 spell, so it comes somewhat later, but it can be very potent. There are certain enemies where polymorphing them completely reduces the threat, especially big boss fights. So I do really like this one in the situational moments where it's relevant. But situational is the key word there, so B tier. We also have Chromatic Orb down in B. I love this spell, and it deserves to be on this list. It allows you to pull out an element of any relevance, much like the Glyph of Warding, and smash targets with it. You can also upcast it to have it deal massive damage, and it comes right at the start of a playthrough as an option. You can also deal some ridiculous damage with this spell, so I just really like it. It deserves to be on the list, but I also think only B tier makes sense for it. Next we have Fireball, which I'm putting into A tier. Yeah, this is just a big AoE spell. It's just so reliable, so high damage for its level, great in AoE, and there's that classic D&D meme about this one spell in that it's just so effective at what it does that as soon as you have it, it's pretty much the main spell you cast from then on. If fire and big damage and AoE is ever relevant, which it usually is, you're probably going to be casting it. Alright, so this is a bit of a placeholder one, but just healing on bonus action, like Healing Word. This is a very efficient and effective action economy spell. Heal a creature you can see on a bonus action for a low level spell slot. It might not be a massive heal, but it's the fact that you can do your turn and then heal yourself. Do your turn, heal an ally that needs it. It's just really efficient. So if you have access to that kind of concept, such as Healing Word, it deserves to be on the list, even if it's down in B. Also down in B is Hold Monster. Josh basically explained this one to me as a better hold person, right? Because it can also hold people, but then other creatures. It just allows for target hard CC on some ridiculous units, and then you get all the extra crit and the damage potential on that target while they're held. It's a fantastic target CC, but because it comes quite late, it's a concentration, it's pretty expensive. I keep it down in B, but the potential is high. Alright, next we have the weaker Conjure Elements and the Woodland Beings. So it's Minor Elemental and Woodland Beings being summoned here. The pair of them are awesome. Summons are great for distracting enemies, sponging the damage up for you, blocking, providing tons of utility, especially when we're talking about elements. They're very good, you want them early, but they're a little bit overshadowed and that's why they're in B. But Conjure Elemental is S tier. If you upcast that to get the strongest elementals, you have ridiculous damage, ridiculous CC, better damage sponges, much more control. They're just very strong. And in most cases where you're able to get an element that's dealing double damage, it can really carry a fight. Summons are awesome, they deserve to be on the list, and that's generally how I rank them, with the weaker ones being down in B. Speaking of B, we have Bless. Bless is top tier. You get it early, you get extra damage for yourself and 2 allies. It is a concentration, which is the main problem, but it does a lot for very little. The reason it's B tier and not A or even S is the fact that it gets overshadowed. Let's say you're running Bless first, then you get Haste, well then you're going to be running Haste, not Bless. It's very good early, but it kind of falls off because other concentration spells do more. God, is it good while it's good. Also in B tier, we have Blade Barrier here, which is just basically the best wall spell of its kind, dealing a lot of damage and control. Wall spells can be amazing, they can be really awkward and backfire. This is probably the best one, and that's why it's on the list. Also S tier is obviously Shield. My god, is this effective, and you get it so early. It greatly reduces the damage you're about to take, increasing your armor class by 5. It only costs a level 1 spell slot and is done on reaction as well, so it's not like you have to prep it in any way. It's just so effective at saving the day. Alright, this is a cheeky one. I have Guidance in S tier just because it's like the most effective mid-conversation buffer that we're using constantly. I know I said we wouldn't include these in this list, but come on, that's the best one. It's so effective at what it does and can be used out of conversation as a buff for better rolls, so it's very relevant even in fights. Last one, we have a single cantrip. Of course, it deserves to be on the list. It might be Warlock exclusive, again going against what I said at the start. But look, we don't have any cantrips on this list. That's the best one. Eldritch Blast, the highest damaging cantrip, charisma scaling, and modified to be like repelling and other fun stuff if you go that route. So I wanted to slyly put it on like I did with Guidance. But there you have it. That is my list of combat related spells, the best of the best, organized against one another. I hope you can understand my reasoning for these, but feel free to suggest other spells that maybe could have made the list or how you'd otherwise reorganize it. Maybe you'll help someone consider another good spell in the future. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.